Ever wondered what it would be like to play with Joker from Persona 5 and Slay the Spire? Well, you don't have to wait any longer. I don't know when I added this mod to my workshop, but it's here. I've never used it before, so I figured, hey, it might be fun to just try it out. I'm just gonna have to say it. First impressions, this character seems like they have a very large skill gap. In Persona, your whole thing is that you're changing the different personas you have, which give you different abilities, and then you use them to beat your enemies. And to translate that to Slay the Spire, the mod creator decided they'll have different cards that change depending on which persona you have active. Every persona card you find is a zero-cost card. When you use that card, it activates a persona onto your character. Each of these personas actually have a different effect. For instance, the full persona makes it so you get +1 strength and +1 dexterity, and I'm not confident, but I think you get to draw an extra card each turn as well. Each kind of persona gives you a different benefit. For example, if you play the Odin card, it'll pretty much be like the Ironclad's Rage, but a way stronger. As long as that's your active persona, every time you play an attack, you get 4 block. If you play the Amaterasu persona, you get something insane. Every single card you play will exhaust, but any card you exhaust will heal you for 2 HP. As you can imagine, that's extremely powerful. That's not the only thing your active personas do. Your active personas also change Arcana cards. Arcana cards are basically an exclusive type of card to Joker. If you don't have an active persona, then they don't do anything. But the moment you activate a persona, depending on which tarot it's involved with, well, you get some interesting effects. But this is also where this character starts to get very complicated and extremely messy to play with. I did one run with this character and I got a grasp of how it works, but I feel like you'd have to put lots and lots of time dedicated into learning these cards for you to be good with this character. These Arcana cards are typically very powerful. It might be a zero-cost draw that exhausts, it might just give you +1 strength and dex, it can give you all these different types of things. For example, if you have a death persona active and you use a certain Arcana card, it'll give one invulnerable to every single enemy every single turn. There's also ones that'll give you more dexterity, ones that'll give you more strength. It really depends on what persona you have active. What I found to be really annoying about these cards though is that they are super complicated to look at. Just look at the footage in the background. If I highlight one of these cards, you see a million other cards pop up and they are telling you with extremely small font, this is what the card will do depending on which persona is active. It's honestly a huge pain in the ass. The moment I saw it, I did not understand whatsoever what was happening. Now, you might also see in the background footage I have a runic pyramid. This relic makes it so that any card you have in your hand does not go away if it's not played. Now, on a normal character, you can have a hand size of 10 cards, which means you can just stay at 10 and you can get screwed over if you're not playing enough cards fast enough. But, as you can see with this footage, Joker has a bit of a really powerful relic to start with. His relic that he starts with makes it so that you can have an infinite hand size. Does that sound busted? It sure as hell is. Runic Pyramid with this character is pretty much like a guaranteed win just because it's so strong. Did I win this run? Well, no, because I screwed myself over, but that's because I just don't understand the character enough. But I would also say taking a runic pyramid with this character is super obnoxious. Just look at how full my hand is. I can't really even use the mouse to grab any cards anymore. Of course, the big question still remains, is the character fun? And I'd say it kind of is, actually. It's very unique, I have to say. This character is a very unique character. They managed to make it feel like you need to change your personas according to whatever fight you get into. Or if you just really like one persona, you could build a deck focused on trying to use one. You probably shouldn't do that because that would be like trying to play the Watcher and then only staying in Wrath form, or only staying in Calm, or only going into Divinity. It just wouldn't work nearly as well, or it'd be as fun. Now, is the character hard? I'm honestly not 100% sure. The thing with this character is, depending on the personas you have, you can have so many different ways of approaching every combat. It also depends on the Arcana cards you get. You might want to take certain Arcana cards depending on whatever personas you find, or take certain personas depending on the Arcana cards you find. I would probably say though, this character is kinda easy. They seem to snowball very, very quickly. For example, you start with the persona Arsene, which is a full tarot. A lot of what the Fool can do with Arcana cards is draw like crazy. If you're not drawing, then you can get dexterity and strength at the same exact time. And honestly, Joker's starting deck is just pretty strong overall. It's a card that attacks twice, but you gain 1 vulnerable. But for the early game, that's incredibly strong. You're doing about 12 damage to an enemy, and on Act 1, that's like half their HP, or even a bit more than half with a lot of the enemies. And if you mix in that you can use the Arsene card, which is +1 strength and dex, it makes that card even stronger. And just having a 0-cost card gives you +1 strength and +1 dexterity for your entire combat is ridiculously good on Act 1. While the character might be a little bit more on the easy side potentially, they're also extremely gimmicky. The amount of fun that you would have with this character really depends on if you enjoy what he does. He has a lot of cards that depends on how many personas you find. He has a lot of cards that depend on what persona is active. He has a lot of cards that depend on the Arcana cards that you find. But let me throw some examples out there of what I mean. In my run through, I found 2 cards that had discard dependent effects. One of them was deal damage, but then for every Arcana card you discard using that card, deal that much damage again. Another one was deal damage, and then for every Arcana card you discard, you gain so much block for every single one. The obvious thing with this character is you want to draw a lot of cards, pretty much no matter what your build is. Your hand size is going to get very large on a lot of turns, even without Runic Pyramid, just because there's so many draw cards and so many cards that rely on having other cards in your hand. And that can get really ugly and confusing and feel really terrible to try and work your way through when your hand size is like 20 cards large. Another example is there's a block card I found that will give you block depending on how many personas you have in your hand. An interesting thing about persona cards, they will always retain, and if you upgrade them, they will always become innate. Of course, you don't want your starting hand to only be a bunch of innate cards, right? But you really only want 1 or 2 upgraded persona cards and then a deck filled with a lot of draw. And this is another thing that can be very frustrating with the character is dead draws can happen really easily. If you can't reliably draw a lot of cards every turn, then those cards I mentioned would not work very well. And that's why there's also cards that say, hey, you don't need to be drawing personas and Arcana cards. In fact, if you don't have any personas in your hand, this card will have more benefit. And honestly, I feel like I would have to make more videos and play with the character more to even explain to you fully how to use this character properly. There's just so many things with this character going on that are very complicated or don't make as much sense until you start trying it. And one video like this isn't really going to prove anything with the character. So if anything here sounds interesting to you, go and try him out for yourself. Whether you enjoy the gimmick or not, you have to admit it's a very unique and different way to play the game. And besides that, I don't really have much else to say. I guess I can explain that I went to fight the heart and it didn't end very well. The deck I had definitely could have won, but I got a little overzealous and threw it all away. There was a combo that I had found between a rare Arcana and a rare Persona card. What the Persona would do is any card played, it would exhaust and heal you. What the Arcana card would do is do damage based on how many exhausted cards you have. So if you have a whole bunch of exhausted cards, then you're going to do a whole bunch of damage. And then I'd found another rare card that makes it so the next Arcana card I play will play twice. Sounds like a great combo. If I'm set up to kill the heart with 1 or 2 shots, I can just do that and we win. And that's what I went for, except I kind of screwed myself over with a different card I had found. I had found an uncommon card, and what this uncommon card would do is take 4 strength away from the enemy for the turn. But as a drawback, you have to lock one of your Arcana cards in your hand. And locking one of these Arcana cards means that if you change your persona, that card will not change its ability. And I think you can see where this is going. I had used that card earlier in the fight and locked my rare Arcana card. And because I don't understand the character well enough and had just simply forgot it was the rare Arcana card that does it, I screwed up the whole combo and just ended up exhausting all of my cards. And yeah, that spelled the end of my run, obviously. And with that, I'm going to say the video basically ends here. If you like the video, subscribe, comment. I'm going to play my collage in the background because I'm daily uploading until Christmas. This was day 12. We got 13 days left until Christmas. So 13 days of daily uploading still. So if you want to see more content and everything, leave a comment. Stick around. There will be more to come. And with that, take care, everyone.